Good day, everyone. Welcome to our webinar session. This webinar is brought to you by IES Research, a team that provides research publication with an engaging voice through the adaptation of the IES storyboard of Big Why, and What. We design visuals and animation to support your research findings, maximize the understanding of the discoveries, and share your story globally to improve research visibility and increase scholarly engagement. My name is Yuvarani Nair Sukumaran, and I will be your host. Today, we are happy to have Iris Shi from IES Research to share her knowledge on research tools. Iris is a research impact consultant, and her consultancy work focuses on designing end-to-end research workflow that captures impact evidences for researchers. In her experience of working on research outreach projects, she had the chance to deliver face-to-face curation training and personal consulting to researchers from different disciplines. This sharing will be approximately 15 minutes, and we will have the remaining 15 minutes for questions and answers. Please feel free to ask any questions throughout the session by simply using the Q&A toolbar located at the bottom center of the Zoom interface. And for those who are joining the session on our YouTube channel, you may type your questions into the chat box. We will collect these questions and answer them during the Q&A session later. Without further ado, I will now pass the floor to Iris.
Good day, everyone. It's good to see you again in this bonus webinar session. Today, we're going to talk about research tools that might help you to be more efficient throughout the research process. First, we will have an overview on research workflow, and then we will break down the research workflow into 3 parts and share with you some skills and tips that you should know during these different phases of research, along with relevant tools. Let's start with an overview of the research workflow. In general, once you set your research question, then you need to kickstart by laying out your plan. Scanning through literatures, identifying relevant resources, data collection, analysis, experiment, etc. Once your conclusion is drawn, you're ready to put the process into writing, which leads you to publish. Is publish the end of research? In the old days, yes, but it is not the situation anymore. There are simply just too many scientific papers published every year, and to let your papers to be seen by peer and then get cited, it is crucial that you should connect and communicate with wider audience so that your work can make an impact on others. After you start to do outreach for your work, you should then monitor the metrics and effect of these activities and improve from that. In previous webinars, we've talked about how to read the full text structurally. This covers the first few phases of research workflow, which we can take it as the authoring part. Later, we share how to write good plan language summary and draw graphical abstract, which generally happens around the publishing phase of research. And then we learned how to promote our research work and review the results, so that's the outreach part. In the coming slides, we will follow these 3 phases. Authoring phase is the fundamental and most crucial phase of research. It's like making a cake. Not only you should get all your ingredients right, but also tend to every detail of the process so you can successfully make the cake. If you don't do it properly, no matter how beautiful the cake is, it still won't taste good. Literature discovery is the key skill at this phase. To master the skill of literature discovery, citation index is the place to start. Every research is built upon previous research, and by citation index, you could leverage the relationship between research papers and expand your paper network. To start with, you should have 1 or a few core papers, which might be the classic of your topic. Look up for its reference list for older papers, and look up for newer papers that cite the core paper. Separately, Look out for papers that share the same references of the core paper and papers that have been cited by papers that cite your core paper. Although these papers might not have direct relationship with the core paper, but they could be considered relevant. By this skill, you could easily locate dozens, even hundreds of papers from a few core papers as base of your literature review. With hundreds of relevant papers, you can get more insight by analyzing them using functions provided by Citation Index. Citation Index allows you to analyze a group of papers by criteria such as authors, journals, or subjects, so you may identify, for example, who are the top authors in this area, and then to dig out works by the authors and explore more relevant articles. The most used citation index are Scopus and Web of Science. Most academic libraries should already subscribe to at least one of them. The two citation index covers peer-reviewed journals from all over the world, so you could start learning how to leverage on citation index from there. If unfortunately your library doesn't subscribe to any of them, alternatives you can go to are Dimensions, Lens.org, or Microsoft Academic. The coverage of these databases are very big, but they don't have selection criteria as Scopus and Web of Science do, so you may find articles which are not peer-reviewed. Now you may ask, why not use Google Scholar? Indeed, we can search citation in Google Scholar, and it has the biggest coverage and covers a wide variety of materials, including cases of law, dissertations, or technical papers. From Google Scholar, you may get the biggest search results, but you have the risk of high percentage of irrelevant information. If we compare Google Scholar, free academic search engines, such as Dimensions, and subscription-based databases such as ACN Digital Library for Computer Science or IEEE Digital Library for Electronic Engineering, you'll notice the free academic search engines provide more sophisticated functions than Google Scholar, such as data analysis, while subscription-based databases generally has deeper coverage of specific subject areas, follows certain editorial criteria to protect you from low-quality papers, has the most convenient access to full text, and provide a subject-focused search capability. For example, ACN allows you to search via computer science thesaurus, and SciFinder allows you to search via chemical structure. You could easily get the information of subscription-based databases from your institution library. By knowing the pros and cons of different databases, you could save the most time and get the most relevant results out of it. In addition to above databases, one trend you should take note is the open access publications. Open access is growing rapidly in the past few years, but what does it mean to researchers? Surely it means you could access to full text without barriers. Although in our experience talking to researchers from many countries and backgrounds, the biggest concern for OA is the quality. As a matter of fact, there are many OA journals have impact factor or published by world-class publishers such as Cambridge University Press or Springer Nature, and many OA journals have peer review process to ensure the research quality and integrity. DOAJ is a journal directory collecting peer review OA journals. You could find all papers published by peer review OA journals here and check the background of the journal personally to ensure its quality. All full texts in DOAJ are openly accessible. There are also some tools that direct you to the OA version or check full text availability of research paper, such as Copernio and Unpaywall. They can tell you whether the paper you have on your browser is OA or not. Copernio can also connect to your library and check if the full text can be retrieved from any databases that your library subscribe to and connect you to the full text. OA not only means open access to research papers, but also open access to datasets, code, samples, or other supplementary materials. Europe has confirmed an ambitious plan called Plan S, which requires all research papers and research data supported by public funding have to be open immediately after its publication. Although Plan S is not yet fully implemented until 2021, but you may find many research institutions and funders are already following it. In the result, many researchers around the world are opening their research data, and you could find the data in data repository such as Zenodo, Figshare, Artifacts, and Mendeley data. Another trend you may take notice is the rising of preprint servers. Preprint servers are also responses of the trend of OA, famous ones such as Archive, or new ones like bioRxiv and medRxiv allow you to publish preprints, so you could have chance to improve it by public peer review before it goes to official publication on journals. Now, with hundreds of papers to read, you need a more structural way to read them through and extract the essence. In our previous webinars, we have shared how to use IES Storyboard to organize big why, what, and how of research paper, and introduced Scholarly, which may assist you in reading full text with efficiency. You may always go to the recorded version on IES website for refreshment. To further organize the papers, you also need reference management tools. These tools allow you to keep your personal library of all papers you have with annotations and highlight, help you to organize papers in the way that you preferred, and share your library with peers and collaborators within or outside of your institution. Another crucial but often neglected point is the integrity of reference items. Statistics shows that many papers are still get cited even after they are retracted. It is okay to cite them if you mention it as negative cases, but it's best that you check every reference item before you submit. Retraction Watch keeps a database on retracted papers where you could search retraction papers conveniently in one place. To set a publishing strategy is a must when your manuscript is ready to be published. You should prioritize a list of target journals by subject, level of prestige and visibility, and avoid predatory journals. Depending on the requirement of your funding agency or research institution, you may choose to use JCR to look up for impact factors or indicators from Scopus or SciMago. To avoid potential predatory journals, you can go to Think, Check, Submit for a practical guideline on how to identify potential predatory. Or you may also reference a pre-selected list like Campbell's Blacklist. Or you can go to DOAJ if you decide to publish your paper on OA journals but not sure how good the quality is. Before submitting, plagiarism checking is needed. Authenticate by turning in is often adopted by research institutions and publishers to check against plagiarism, and it is a protection for you to avoid unintentional text overlapping. There are also many grammar checking tools available for you to polish the wording, such as Grammarly, or you may always go to editing service companies like UniEdit, where professional proofreaders could help you personally with suggestions. It is also recommended that you prepare a plain language summary when submitting the manuscript. Many publishers are asking for it, and it is a good way for you to introduce your research to general editors before publishing and to non-field specialists after publishing. You may follow the IES storyboard to organize the big why, what for your research paper to prepare your research story, which can be further transformed into plain language summary, graphical abstract, or snippets for social media. To write and share POS after publication, you may go to Kudos or consult with IES team for POS writing and publication. To draw graphical abstract, tools that we recommended earlier, including Photoshop, Canva.com, or you may simply use Microsoft PowerPoint to draw something very nicely. To share POS and graphical abstract to a wider audience, you may use social media such as Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube if you are to share video, or use blog service to share more detailed information. You can maintain a YouTube channel or blog, but to reach to wider audience and engage with them, it's best to use social media to blast the information to widest audience. Depending on the situation, you may choose to use different social media. Facebook is widely used in Asia, while Twitter is heavily used in Western countries. When you do outreach for your work, you need to monitor the metrics so you know the effectiveness of the outreach strategy. For example, what kind of approach could attract most engagement, and through which channel can get the most full text download, etc. In general, it would take several months to see positive results. Metrics that are widely recognized in the world is Allmetric and PlumX. These are all metrics which measure the visibility of research paper over the internet. They cover mentions of research papers on social media, news media, blogs, or Wikipedia, so you can know how many people are referencing or mentioning the paper over the internet. Other metrics you may reference to if you are using blogs or social media is Google Analytics and metrics from Facebook and Twitter. They provide insight on how many visitors, followers, or engagement of your post, where do they come from, whether they click on the full text, etc. Besides promoting your research paper, you need to set a personal profile to identify yourself from others. Sign up for an ORCID ID, which provides a universal identification number for global researchers, so you can be recognized when submitting manuscript to publishers or applying for fund. This ID will accompany you for the rest of your research career. You can also update your resume and maintain a list of publications on ORCID and connect the information to academic profiling services such as Google Scholar, academia.edu, or ResearchGate. You may further leverage on different features of each profiling service and add POS, graphical abstract, even videos onto your profile if it allows. But most of all, should you get feedback from your outreach activity, engage with them as much as you can to open up opportunities for potential collaboration. In a nutshell, there are many tools that assist you to achieve better management of your research process of authoring, publishing, and outreaching. With the limit of time, the tools mentioned here are just some examples. By categorizing them into different aspects, you should have a better view of what is necessary in each phase. There's not necessary that you know all of them or even to master all of them, but you could always consult your local librarians or IES research consultant team for more information. With all the tools being introduced, before you go further to start evaluating and learning to use them, here are some tips for you. First, check with your library on available resources. Your library may have subscribed to some of them, and we encourage you to take what library has subscribed to as priority. Most libraries regard usage as one of the important factors when making subscription decisions. Without your support, library may have no choice but to terminate the subscription. In the result, you will lose access to useful resources. Free resources might be good, but efficiency comes with a price, and in many cases, it is not a price that you could afford on your own. In addition, when choosing tools, remember to check if the functions suit your need and workflow. Don't use a tool just because other people are using it. It may be the case when choosing data repository, but it is not the case when choosing reference management tool. Remember, there's no one perfect tool to fit all your needs. Each tool has its specialty and limitation. Be aware so you can make the best of them. As mentioned earlier, there's not necessary that you know all of them, and it's almost impossible to master all of them. We have only 24 hours a day, and sometimes it is good to do things on your own, but you can always save time and focus on more important things by letting someone to do it for you. That's my sharing today, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Iris, for the insightful sharing. Now we will be opening up the Q&A session for the interest of those who joined the session late. You can enter your question in the Q&A toolbar located at the bottom center of Zoom interface or through the chat box if you're joining the live session on YouTube. Hi, Iris.
Hi, Yuva. How are you?
Good. Yeah. Hope you're well too.
Yes, I'm fine too.
Okay, by breaking down the research workflow into authoring, publishing, and outreaching, I believe you've made it easier for our audiences to plan their work using some of the tools you've suggested according to the research phases they are in. One of the questions is that with countless number of academic papers being produced each day, it becomes challenging for a researcher to keep track of all those newly published papers. What would you suggest to be the best way for researchers to keep themselves updated with the latest discoveries?
Well, yes, that's a very practical question. And I believe that many researchers, even you and I, couldn't get very quick response of what's going on in the world. So for the academic world, I would suggest that if you as a researcher, you do have frequently visited databases or the main literature databases in your subject area, then I would suggest that you go to that databases and sign up for something called alerts. Normally, in many databases, they do have a feature where you can assign a few keywords or to identify a few subject areas. And as long as there is new articles related to that keyword or subject area, then the system or the database will notify you automatically via email or via the way that you specified when setting up the alert. So this is one way that you can do to receive the information when there is anything new in your interested area from the database that you usually use. But of course, there are also other ways. For example, you keep an eye on several databases or several communities that is quite related to your subject area. And sometimes they are using social media like Facebook or Twitter. And then you can follow that Facebook or Twitter account. In that Facebook or Twitter accounts, I believe that many researchers are sharing their recent publications so that when you just scan through the news from the social media, you can easily keep an eye on what's happening in your territory. But of course, in another way, if you want your paper to be seen by others, this is also a good way that you can announce your findings or announce your publications to the readers in your community or in relevant community as well.
Okay, that's a very elaborate and very useful answer. We have a question over here by the on the chat box. Some research tools are not validated in many countries. Could you share your experiences in these cases?
I'm not sure what it meant by validated, but I guess in my experiences, some research tools are, for example, blocked in China. This is my experience. So for example, like Google Scholar is blocked in China, so that any researchers from the China Chinese IP cannot access to Google Scholar. If this is what it means, then that I would suggest you to go to some of the alternatives. If you remember the previous slide that we represented, there is one slide which compares Google Scholar with other alternative academic engines and the library subscribed databases. In places like China, Google Scholar is somehow blocked because of the wide variety of information it covers. However, Microsoft Academic, I believe it is not blocked. And so for the library subscribed databases, actually most of them are purely for academic and scholarly communication, so it will not be blocked. So it is also a very good place that you can choose if Google Scholar is blocked in your area.
Okay. There are two of them who asked which reference management tool is the best to use.
I would say that there is no standard answer. Remember what I said earlier, there is no such thing as perfect tool. And every tool might be everyone's best tool might be different from each other. It all depends on your research workflow and your preference. So for instance, EndNote as a reference management tool, it is a very old and many people are actually using it. So the actual number of users are actually very high. But if you ask the users whether they really like EndNote or not, maybe they will give you a different answer, but probably because they don't have time to evaluate on others. Reference management tool, there are many options that you can choose to play with to have a look and feel on what it does. And I would suggest that you can go and play around with some of them and decide it for yourself. But when I say reference management tool, normally the difference is basically on the user interfaces. Many features are actually the same for many reference management tools. So for example, almost all reference management tool has the ability to import or export reference items using formats like RIS or BibTeX. And as long as the reference management tool allows the two different standard formats of reference items, then I would say you're quite safe, because if you go to any library subscribed databases or Google Scholar or Microsoft Academic, all the reference items or all the bibliographic information, you can actually download them in these two standard formats. So most of the reference management tool can actually accept that.
I guess at the end, it just boils down to the familiarity of the researcher with each of this reference management tool, as well as how comfortable they are with they are with using these tools. There's also a question on, could you please, could you share what is the average reference needed for a research paper, if it's possible?
It actually varies, because in medical field, normally the number will be much higher than in the social science field. So I would suggest you to look at your specialties or subject areas and check those examples from different papers. In some cases, the number of references is not actually matters unless you are told by the journals that you want to submit to. And in some cases, that will guide you on how what do they think about your reference items should be. So of course, you should have sufficient reference items to back your research. That is for certain. But is that necessary that you reference as much as you can? I would say no. Just do it according to your, I would say, research integrity, and follow the examples of your subject category, then I think it will be fine.
Okay, once again, thank you, Iris, for such an informative sharing, and also appreciate all the interesting questions from the audience. Due to the interest of time, I'm afraid that we may not be able to answer all of your questions. For those that has not been answered, we would be answering them offline via email. Meanwhile, in order to bring you a better experience in our future webinars, please leave us your feedback by scanning the QR code on the slide. Thank you for your participation. We hope this series of webinars on to do your research work at home, read, write, draw, promote, and the bonus session today has been helpful to you. Do visit our website, iesresearch.solution, for more exciting case studies and webinars. We will share the recorded version for those of you who are interested at the end of this session. Thank you and have a good day. Please stay safe.